It's officially November, and for a lot of us, this marks the beginning of the holiday season, a time when we gather with friends and family and give thanks that we've all found a place to belong. But what happens when the human need to be accepted by a group gets twisted into something evil, used as a weapon against those who feel ostracized and alone? Welcome to Cult Month, where we share the stories of how the need to belong can go so horribly wrong.
Isn't this a bad theme choice with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up?
Absolutely. But awful ideas always make the best stories. I'm sure anyone can agree with that. So the cult I've decided to start off with is perfectly fitting for this channel if you ask me. It involves religion making people do some DEFCON 1 level bat shenanigans, sadly no popes this time, and aliens in a spaceship. See? Totally appropriate for this channel. I'm Vibi, and on this episode of A Space Alien Explains, Heaven's Gate. The earliest incarnation of Heaven's Gate began in the early 1970s, led by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles. Applewhite was a music professor who was fired from his job at a university in Houston because of an alleged relationship he was having with a male student. He met Bonnie Nettles at a hospital where she worked. The story of how exactly they ran into each other varies depending on who you ask, but the common thread was that they had an instant connection. And they both had the feeling their meeting had some kind of higher purpose. Oh boy, did they have absolutely no idea about that last part. Nettles and Applewhite began sharing their beliefs with one another and studying all kinds of text and scripture together. They came to the conclusion that the two of them were the prophets foretold in the Book of Revelation, the ones who would be killed and resurrected, which is followed by an earthquake that kills 7,000 men. Don't ask me about Revelation. I don't know if John was high, or if God was high, or if the pages themselves were high, but somebody, somewhere, clearly was high. Applewhite was also a big fan of science fiction, which is probably how all the UFO stuff got kinda shoved in there. They began handing out pamphlets and publishing advertisements for meetings, where they presented themselves as a pair from a planet called the Next Level. According to Nettles and Applewhite, they were due to be sent back on a spaceship in a few months, and were offering people an opportunity to join them. But in order to do so, they would have to become what they called a higher evolutionary level above human. Now that might sound weird to you, but people ate that up. Applewhite and Nettles managed to convince their followers to give up all their possessions, say goodbye to their loved ones, and vanish from the public eye. They abstained from sex, alcohol, and smoking. They wore baggy clothes and cropped hairdos and tried to cleanse their minds and bodies of impurities. There wasn't much individuality here, and in order to ascend to a higher level, you had to ditch everything that made you human. Applewhite also convinced the men to castrate themselves. But more on that later. I'm sure some of you watching this already know how the story of Heaven's Gate ends. Originally, suicide was never in the plans to enter the next level. All they had to do was wait for the spaceship and it would come take them away. Unfortunately, that spaceship never came, and something else happened. Bonnie Nettles died of cancer. Thing is, Nettles was truly the brains behind this whole operation. Applewhite was just the one who did all the speaking. Bonnie was probably the one telling Marshall to reel that back in response to any horrendous ideas he might have had. And without anyone to tell him no, he was left completely unchecked, and that's when started going sideways. Applewhite had to rewrite some of his doctrine to account for this unexpected event.
So much for being a prophet.
He claimed that Nettles had found another way to make it to the next level, and she'd continue assisting them from there. This is kinda where the castration part comes into. Applewhite had a nocturnal emission, and apparently next level beings aren't supposed to do that. So he gathered all the guys in a room and just kinda went, "Hey, I have an idea." Once again, Bonnie wasn't there to tell him no. After the death of Nettles, the discovery of the Hale comet, which only comes around every 2,000 to 4,000 years, was the next big turning point for the cult. Applewhite believed that the spaceship was following that comet, and it's coming for real this time, I swear. They were going to make sure they wouldn't miss it. On March 26, 1997, an anonymous tip was called in to San Diego County Police, asking them to check on the residents of a mansion in a nearby suburb. When police arrived, they discovered the bodies of 39 people, neatly laid out in bunk beds, wearing black clothes and Nikes, a purple cloth covering their faces. A few days before then, the cult members committed suicide, following a very specific set of instructions. A group of 15 people would ingest a mixture of applesauce and barbiturates, then tie a plastic bag over their heads and wait to die. A group of 8 would clean up after them, cover them with a purple cloth, and then the next 15 would take their turn. Applewhite was one of the last people to die, the 37th one to be exact. Only 2 bodies were discovered without a purple cloth covering them, so we can guess that they were supposed to clean up Applewhite and then kill themselves afterward. The Heaven's Gate event was the largest mass suicide to ever take place on US soil. And before you go asking me about Jonestown, yes, way more Americans died in that one, but that was in Guyana. The suicides were largely publicized in the media. The co-discoverer of the Hale-Bopp comet, Alan Hale, got a metric ton of phone calls that he wouldn't answer until a press conference the next day. Well before the events of Heaven's Gate, Hale said to a colleague, "We are probably going to have some suicides as a result of this comet. Comets are lovely objects, but they don't have apocalyptic significance. We must use our minds, our reason." Well said, Dr. Hale. The only thing left of Heaven's Gate now is their website, which is, just f***ing look at it. 2 members who chose to stay behind still run the site, and people have reported getting email responses from them every now and then. Do I think you should email them? Probably not. Okay, I'm sad now. This was a really bad idea before Christmas.
I told you.
Want to go chase some comets and see if anyone else freaks out?
No.
Hi everyone! Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. This week's featured fan art is by PoppyPops11 on Twitter. Link to the artist's page is in the description. And here's some comments from the last video. If you found this episode interesting, please be sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. If you'd like to support the channel, I have art commissions and a Ko-Fi page available. Buy me a coffee and I'll make you a little sketch as a way of saying thanks. Links to all that, as well as links to my social media, are in the description. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you real soon.